Myself, Dr. Surendra Singh. The two parts will be dealing with me. The first part will be the Indian society, and the second part will be the social justice. However, before we proceed, let me make two things very clear to you. With me, there is no boundary of the syllabus. Whatever you go through, either in terms of economics, politics, science tech, or whatever, environmental, everything has its repercussions on society. That's the first part that you'll have to understand, that whatever we'll be talking about, whatever we'll be reading, it has its impact on the society. And every discourse, every narratives which we'll be picking up over the few days will be somewhere the part of the society. And sometimes I'll be making you move to the paper 1, to paper 2, to 3, to 4. And I'll let you know that why it is required, why we are going over there. And I'll stop there so that the other teachers who have their own expertise in this field, they could pick up from there. This is the first thing that we'll have to remember. And second thing, some conceptual dimensions will emerge out. Concepts do not have any alternatives. Every subject will bring its own perspective, every subject will bring its own domain. And it is required in part of you as a student in civils to use these words, to use these concepts. The concepts sometimes will not be finding in terms of your dictionaries. If there is any problem in terms of concepts, jot it down so that we can talk about it. But with one or two requests. The first request, when I'm extempore, hold your questions. Your questions will be answered by me, one by one. And after every 1 hour, I'll be going out. You do not have to come out. Be in the class. एक बात को लेकर मैं हमेशा बहुत खुश रहता हूं कि मैंने अपने टर्म्स पे 23 साल पढ़ाया, डॉक्टर्स के टर्म्स पे नहीं पढ़ाया. Can I now? Of late, from where the syllabus changed in 2013, the new syllabus with which we are here, we find that with every year, with the passage of every year, number of questions from Indian society is increasing. And the questions are such, their natures are such, that apart from the conceptual one, they are also being asked in terms of the practicality. The certain kind of contemporary issues with which we'll be dealing in social issues in a paper 2. The first part we'll be picking up in terms of understanding society in general. So the moment you look at the paper 1, you find about, it is written Indian society. But from 2013, when you start looking at the nature of questions which have been asked in civils, there are so many questions which have not been asked merely from the Indian society, rather they have been asked in a broader context, the global scenario, the Western context. Hence, we'll be dealing with the society and the different facets of society. So I'm not talking about Indian society. Rather, we'll be dealing with the society and its different facets. And every concept, every domain which we'll pick up, we'll try to look at from the two types, from the two dimensions. We'll look the concept in a generalistic term so that we would become able to understand the global scenario, the global understanding, and more precisely the Western context. And then we'll be looking at that concept in a particularistic domain, so that we'll be looking at how it has been used and how it has been perceived in the Indian context, with which we'll be able to compare. For example, if I ask you, or if I let you know that in 2014 they asked you one question, that how Indian concept of secularism differs from that of the Western secularism. Any question which has been comparative, any question which has been asked in terms of, to look at the differences, both the similarities and differences are to be talked about. There are so many concepts which we have gone through in day to day. The moment you look at any magazine or you go through any newspaper and we look at what is happening around the country, you come across this kind of word. What is required in part of you to be conceptually clear? It means the first dimensions which you'll be picking up, that is a talk kind of one, or what? पहले समझना बेटा मुझे, हाँ? Now in a one line, what is society? We do not have to go deep into the subject to understand what society is. Yes is for the general orientation, who may not be the specialist of the certain subjects. In a one-liner, when you're looking at the society, society is basically a web of social relationship, a network of social. Means every concept which has been written in a paper one, right from the salient features of Indian society to diversity, to the joint family, to the caste system, to secularism, to communalism, empowerment, regionalism, feminism, women movement, everything has to be looked by you in terms of that social relation. And once you have become comfortable with, then you think of that if you are approaching society, and more precisely we are talking about the Indian society from the paper one, what would be the certain salient features of Indian society? If I ask anyone, any Indian, then what would be the salient feature? One of the salient features of Indian society, he'll be saying, sir, diversity, unity in diversity. Now look what UPSC has done. UPSC asked you a question, what are the bases of diversity in India? And then they specified the question, what are the social bases of diversity in India? Polity, you have done it. And the moment you come to the fundamental rights, more precisely from the Article 13, invariably, you have found the word irrespective of caste, creed, and sex. All right. Can I read it differently? Can I say that caste, creed, and sex have been recognized constitutionally? Take your time. When you say irrespective of caste, creed, sex, does not it mean that these categories are recognized? All right? And if these categories are recognized, then Indian Constitution has never asked any one of us to relinquish our previous identity. Am I making myself clear? Relinquish means give up. We cannot be an Indian without becoming something else. We are first something else. then we are in India. Right? To become a Hindu, to become a Muslim, to become a Christian, a Sikh, is not a hindrance to be an Indian. Right? That diversity is celebrated in the country. Despite the diversity, we are searching for the unity. Right? And unity is not assimilative. You understand the word assimilation? What is assimilation? What observe? जोर से बोलो. Then what is integration? We are saying the same thing. Why do we need two words? कोई नहीं. यहाँ तक ठीक है? इधर देखो इधर. These are the two cultures. Right? Whenever these two cultures will meet, three possibilities will emerge. The first possibility will, one of the culture will observe the cultural traits of another in such a manner that it loses its identity. It means homogenization. This is assimilation. Can we characterize Indian society to be assimilative? No. Am I able to make myself clear? When both the cultures take something from one another, acculturation. Clear hai? When neither this nor this something new is called integration. Clear hai? It means to understand the diversity in the country, we need a model that is called salad ball model. Salad khaya hai na? Alright? Composed of the different ingredients. Every ingredients have maintained their identity and together they have become something new. So being a Hindu, being a Sikh, being a Christian, being a Muslim, we all have come to the platter with a salad ball model. Clear, right? But is it that only Indian society is a diversified society? Is the Western society not diversified? True. When you start going through the world history, you'll find about the Europe was a homogenized society. But the day Europe started having a contact with the East, diversity emerged. And America is a diversified society. People from the different races, from the different religions, they have come. And this diversity is celebrated in America. Clear, right? But that diversity is explained by the model that is called melting pot model. Getting me? So, the moment you say diversity, what I am saying, here is the two model. Here we are talking about right? In India, we are explaining diversity with are you able to understand the difference now? All right? Means how to approach. Can I rub it? अगर छूट गई है इस वाले बोर्ड की today itself, tomorrow. You might be receiving the questions of the previous years, which I've asked them to compile and send it to you, so that you would be able to understand why such kind of discussions are going on. And I'm not here to make you happy. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to unsettle you. All right? Because how do you approach Indian society and how I approach Indian society has a lot of difference. The nature of questions, the dimensions which will be opening up, and you'll realize that why these dimensions have come out. Now if I say here, यहीं से शुरू करते बेटा. Can I say that the one of the most salient features of Indian society is complexity? It's a complex society. It's a archaic. Archaic means ancient. And it is syncretic society. Syncretic means blend. So here it is. ठीक है बेटा. And Indian society has been a dynamic society. When I say it is a dynamic society, it means, when I say it is a dynamic society, it means, can we make a line that Indian society reflects a chronicle of events? So many things have come, so many people came out, so many cultures came out, so many religions came out. And in this chronicle of events, changes have emanated from, emanate means nikalna. Changes have emanated from within, and changes have also come from outside. Clear, right? But neither of the changes which is coming from within or coming from outside has disturbed the equilibrium of the society. Right? 2021 question. This was the question of equilibrium. It means how to view society. Indian society has reflectively, it has to be viewed in terms of continuity and change, change and continuity. Getting me? So changes coming from within is called orthogenetic. I have used now the social word. Orthogenetic means emanating from within. For example, if I am looking at religion, can I say Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism? They are orthogenetic, coming from within. And some changes, some religions came from outside. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, isn't it? They came from out. They are called heterogeneous. So one change is from within, one change is from outside, but that equilibrium has been maintained. Clear? So we'll be writing ठीक है बेटा. All right? And to the common man, which I said, in terms of the, one of the features that will be coming out is called readable, writing thick, पढ़ ले रहे हो? We'll be talking about what are the bases of diversity. Bases of diversity could be geographical. Bases of diversity could be racial. Bases of diversity could be religious. Bases of diversity could be linguistic. And bases of diversity could also be cultural practices. ठीक है? अब एक लाइन याद रखना बेटा. Sometimes you will be finding the word ethnicity. Right? It means race is a biological endowment. But rather than looking at or explaining any of the group of people on the basis of biological endowment, when you try to look it in terms of history, religion, culture, you use the word ethnicity. Am I able to make myself clear here? So the bases will come out. And mind my line here. If any one of you has taken the pain to look at the syllabus, first paper, the syllabus is written salient features of Indian society, semicolon, unity and diversity. Right? If anyone is talking about the salient features, will certainly be talking about unity and diversity. Was it not known to the examiner? Why unity and diversity has been kept? Means they have opened up, they have given you the hint that the dimensions would be opened up on the basis of the basis which they started asking from 2020. All right, there. And one of, apart from this, can I say that Indian society basically represents an amalgamation of modernity and tradition? So we'll be talking about yet another feature that is called ठीक है बेटा 2022 एक लाइन सुनो. Can I say that neither of these two processes, modernity and tradition, have been power pervasive enough to replace one another? Isn't it? And even in Indian democracy, with the adoption of democracy, when we say that India marched toward the modernity, we respected certain suppressed soul of tradition. If I could quote Pandit Nehru, Ashok Stamb, Satyamev Jayate, isn't it? These are the suppressed soul of tradition in modern Indian democracy. So tradition was not enough to replace modernity. Modernity was not a pervasive enough to replace tradition. So they coexisted with one another. All right? Mind the word, modernization of tradition and traditionalization of modernity. भारी हो गया. अच्छा, आज जो मॉडर्न है वो कल ट्रेडिशन होगा या नहीं होगा? I have only used the word that modernization of tradition and traditionalization of modernity with the passage of time. क्लियर है? और एक फीचर तो आपको पता ही होगा इंडिया का, जब भी बात करेंगे, वन ऑफ द मोस्ट सेलिएंट फीचर ऑफ इंडियन सोसाइटी इज बेसिकली कास्ट सिस्टम. ठीक है? And if anyone is talking about the caste system, we'll be certainly talking about the scheduled caste or the rails. All right? There has been one question in civils, though still I consider that it should not be asked to you. The question was, what perspective Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhi brought in the study of caste system? Getting me? So here when we talk about the caste system, we'll be talking about Dalits. Dalit consciousness, questions are there. Dalit identity, questions are there. Getting me? And then they have also asked the question in terms of caste and politics. Politicization of caste, casteization of politics. Clear? And then in 2014, if I'm not wrong, they asked one question on joint family. It means if anyone, it is an old proverb, it's an old saying in a social science, that if any one of us wants to approach Indian society, three cardinal features should not be neglected. The first cardinal feature of Indian society is the caste system. Second cardinal feature is joint family. And third one is called Jajmani system, which will be characterizing the rural agrarian society. है? अब आपके सिलेबस में एक पार्ट है urbanization, problems and the remedies. Can we understand urbanization in India without understanding the rural agrarian society? So we'll have to talk about rural-urban dichotomy and continuum. Clear? So yet another feature apart from this will emerge out, that is called ठीक है. What is joint family? क्वेश्चन सुन लेना यूपीएससी क्या पूछा. यूपीएससी asked you that the life cycle of joint family is more economic than social. Explain. अब सोचो और मुझे जवाब दो. What is joint family? क्या बोलोगे तुम? The joint family is the family in which several generations of people live together. है? Family in India means joint. Despite 90% of the people living in the nuclear families in India, right? They have the jointness mentality. Getting me now? थोड़ा डीप जा रहा हूं, समझने की कोशिश कर. The term joint in a joint family is a colonial construct. Why I'm saying colonial construct? When the Britishers established themselves politically, administratively, and when they turned their attention to the collection of revenues, the first problem they faced, which particular individual is to be held responsible to pay the revenues or taxes? Why? Because all the people, all the males particularly related to the common ancestor, has a common share in the property. Thus, they came out with a law that is called co-parcenary law. Even today, in the modern jurisprudence, when you talk about HUF, right, Hindu undivided family, the law applicable is called co-parcenary law. All the males related with the common ancestor are called co-parceners. Alright? Co-parcenary, is it not talking about the jointness? Look at. Clear है मेरी बात? And then, apart from this, अभी थोड़ा थोड़ा करके, sometimes we'll write down few lines, but you first understand it. And then from here, we'll be talking about Yajmani system. Alright? It is basically the perspective of caste interactions and interdependence. If some of you who have been to the villages, you will find about that in the villages, most of the caste, they provide the services, receive the services from one another. And sometimes it goes hereditary. Apart from the caste, yet another important salient features of Indian society is basically called tribes. Okay? UPSC asked you the question, why tribes are called scheduled tribe in India? Will anyone answer? Yes, please, जोर से. Which one? कौन सा? हाँ, 5th 6th दोनों है. Don't get confused. Article 342. मोबाइल है? बोलो. पढ़ो सबको. मिला बेटा? मिला है ट्राइब? हैं? आर्टिकल 366 पे जाओ, खोलो. उसमें रेफरेंस 342 का लिखा होगा। मिला बेटा? मैं एक लाइन बोलूं? After independence, the constitution makers wanted to integrate the tribals without interfering into their tradition and custom. Thus, they were scheduled constitutionally in reference to Article 366 and 342, along with the 5th and a 6th schedule. That's why tribes in India are called scheduled tribe. Simple answer था. Clear है? This much clarity of your thought to approach the question should be there. All right? Once you have done it, then can I say that Indian society is a secular society? बोल सकता हूं? All right? Sir. होगा ना? And when you look at the syllabus at the end of the syllabus in the first paper, 4 concepts are written in a row: secularism, communalism, originalism, and social empowerment. All right. But somehow, once we have picked up some of the salient features of Indian society, we'll also be anticipating the certain more dimensions of the questions through which the Indian society is contemporarily going on. It means we'll be talking about the challenges before the Indians. And one of the challenges which makes secularism look pale and exhausted is communalism. ठीक है? नहीं रुका UPSC. UPSC asked you the question in 2019 that what are the challenges of cultural practices in the name of secularism in India? Getting me? Entire social media, which most of you go through without verifying, it said that the question is wrong. Some of the political parties, you'll be surprised to know, some of the political parties lodged a complaint to the UPSC that why or how such kind of questions be unasked. Secularism allows us to practice our culture. I'm not denying it. Can you write on the UPSC that this question is wrong? Or you would be looking at a certain dimension why this question has been framed. Getting me now? And particularly last year they asked you the 2 questions in terms of integration and others in terms of secularism. It means from here we'll be looking at Indian society at crossroads. Alright. This crossroad would basically be making us look at all the challenges through which the Indian society is going. And whatever the transformation the Indian society is basically witnessing, what challenges Indian society is facing, what are the attempts which have been done about. And some questions have been asked in terms of suggestive manner. You understand suggestive manner? Remember this line of mine, beta. Your suggestions in civil should be practical, not philosophical. Alright? Any one of you will be going for the interview. In an interview, even in an interview, your suggestions should not be philosophical. Alright? Your suggestions should be practical. So if they ask you what suggestions do you provide to deal with communalism, originalism and others? Alright? Think practical. Getting me now? And keep yourself away from the social media, unverified social media and their data. Alright? देखो भाई, शुद्ध सपाट हिंदी में बहुत से इंस्टीट्यूट होंगे वो रोज 5 क्वेश्चन इंडियन सोसाइटी पे बना देंगे, ठीक है? उसे आता होता कुछ है नहीं, उसे एक भी क्वेश्चन आता नहीं है। आप परेशान होते हो ना? भूल जाइए उसे। सिलेबस के इर्द गिर्द देखो, इस डायमेंशंस में देखो, और वेन एवर यू पिक अप एनी नीड ट्राई टू अप्रोच that concept, that topic, by breaking it into the different dimensions. All right? These are the dimensions which you have picked up. Now, you are required to know them one by one. All right? With the one request, from tomorrow onwards when you come to the class, I'll appreciate and be very thankful to you that the question bank is there with you. The best way to judge yourself is to look at the questions which have been asked in civil. So I do agree, do say that not necessarily these questions will be repeated. All right? But once you know the concepts, you must come to the stage where you could anticipate certain more dimensions from that concept. Your anticipation will basically be making you look at the different kind of questions and approach it more systematically. All right? We'll write down few lines and then we'll talk one by one. All right? And my notes will be one liner. So ऐसे करके लिखेंगे बेटा, एक पैराग्राफ वाइज नहीं लिखेंगे. All right? Let's write down few lines. रुक जाओ थोड़ा सा. Yes. हाँ? मैं ऐसा दिखता नहीं, मैं हूं अच्छा आदमी हूं मैं. आई एम अ गुड सोल. पीपल से दैट यू आर अ गुड सोल. इसका कुछ कर नहीं सकता मैं, और इसका कुछ करने की जरूरत भी नहीं, बिकॉज लॉन्ग बैक एगो आई गॉट मैरिड. So when I got married, and I asked my wife, is it your own father? She was startled. क्या हो गया? I'm like, your father came to see me while I was taking class. And despite looking at me, seeing me, he dared to give your hand. इसीलिए मुझे लगा पूछना कि अपना फादर है कि स्टेप फादर है. राइट? मेरा तो हो गया. तुम लोग भी खुश रहो, क्योंकि सेक्स रेशियो इंडिया का बढ़ गया है ना? बीच में बहुत खराब हो गया था. ठीक है? क्लियर है मेरी बात? अब पहला लाइन लिखो. इंडियन सोसाइटी इज अ कॉम्प्लेक्स archaic and syncretic society. Syncretic बेटा SYNC है. syncretic का बगल में लिख लेना बेटा. ओए बैक बेंचर्स, blend. हाँ? Syncretic society which needs to be analyzed from both historical as well as contextual dimension. Since Indian society reflects a very long history which requires to be understood. Which requires to be understood. To understand present society. ठीक है? All right? Next, Indian society बेटा बैठ ऐसी चलवा, बोलो गर्मी लग रही, बुलाओ बेटा। Ask. चला बेटा, थोड़ा चला चला, आई एम फीलिंग हॉट। अबे आई एम क्वाइट यंग, राइट? अभी 3 साल का हुआ हूं मैं। योर एज बिगिंस आफ्टर 50। बेटा थोड़ा ऐसी चलवा दे, और एक बार महफूज को भेजना बेटा मेरे पास। एक दो को तो मार के ही जाऊंगा मैं, जाऊंगा नहीं से। एक दो को यहीं पे शहीद करके जाऊंगा, तुम रुको ना इंडियन सोसाइटी में। एसी इतना चला दूंगा, बर्बाद करके जाऊंगा, रुक जाओ तुमको। आई, ठीक है बेटा। हंसो बीच बीच में, गड़ियल, और मुझे देख के हंसो थोड़ा थोड़ा बीच बीच में। Indian society reflects a colorful chronicle of events which requires to be viewed सोशल इश्यूज। सोशल इश्यूज कुछ भी नहीं है सिलेबस, उसको इंडियन सोसाइटी का शेड्यूल में भी इंडियन सोसाइटी। अब के सिलेबस में सोशल इश्यूज है ही नहीं है, ठीक है। हाँ, दसा बोलूं, लाइन बोल बेटा। To be viewed from the perspective of, from the perspective of, mind the words, continuity and change. And change and continuity. ठीक है, चेंजेस हैव कंटिन्यू, दैट वन, चेंजेस हैव इमानेटेड, उसी लाइन में बेटा। चेंजेस हैव इमानेटेड, EMANAT, इमानेटेड मतलब निकलना। चेंजेस हैव इमानेटेड फ्रॉम विद इन as well as from outside. इधर बेटा, ऑर्थोजेनेटिक एंड हेट्रोजेनेटिक, ठीक है। Wherever you write the word orthogenetic, write down from within. Heterogenetic coming from outside. ठीक है, क्लियर है? Continue that one. However, mind the lines beta. However, the equilibrium of Indian society without being disrupted or uprooted, UPROOT, uprooted, continued, for which we can use the term moving equilibrium. ठीक है बेटा? Next. Third one, no? Right? Though in a popular parlance, PARLANC, parlance. Okay? Though in a popular parlance, we have been using the term Indian society, but a close scrutiny reveals SCRUTINY beta, scrutiny reveals a widespread diversity prevalent within it, making it prevalent within it, making it society of societies. ठीक है बेटा? एक एरो मार्क देना ऐसे करके, इसका मतलब है कि उस नोट्स का पार्ट है वो. तो गिव एन एरो मार्क डाउनवर्ड्स. It will be easy to read when you read at home. All right. Broadly, the diversity could be viewed in terms of geographical spread, racial, RACIL, R capital, geographical का G capital, racial, oblique, ethnic E capital, ethnic composition, linguistic affinity, 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 religious affiliation, AFFI, affiliation, and cultural practices. ठीक है बेटा? कुछ पुराना बुक पढ़ोगे ना बेटा, नोट्स, तो रेशियल स्टॉक्स लिखा होगा, है ना, STOCKS, अब नहीं यूज करेंगे उसको, ठीक है। ठीक है, यहां लिखेंगे बेटा, नंबर ए, नॉर्थ एंड नॉर्थ ईस्ट जोन, नॉर्थ एंड नॉर्थ ईस्ट जोन। नंबर 2, सदर्न जोन। नंबर 3, सेंट्रल जोन। नंबर 4, ईस्टर्न जोन। राइट, नंबर 4 हो गया। नंबर 5, आइलैंड जोन, अंडमान की तरफ चल जाएंगे बेटा, ठीक है ना। किसी भी ज्योग्राफिकल क्लासिफिकेशन में हम लोग अंडमान को छोड़ दिए थे, यहां से शुरू होता है। So they say that apart from this, we'll have to also talk about the island zone. So these are the 5 within which the different cultures, different races, different stocks that could be found. इसके नीचे आ जाओ बेटा, रेशियल और एथनिक कंपोजिटी। नंबर 1, ठीक है, प्रोटो ऑस्ट्रोलॉइड। लिखूं, हो जाएगा कि लिखूं? लिखूं। रेस कितना है ब्रॉडली? कॉकेशियंस, निग्रिटो, मंगोलॉइड्स, है ना। तो इंडिया का जो सबसे ओरिजिनल इनहेबिटेंट्स है उसको प्रोटोस्टोलाइट्स बोलते हैं, ठीक है। नंबर 2, निग्रिटो, NEGRITO। नंबर 3, मंगोलॉइड। नंबर 4, मेडिटेरेनियन। ठीक है ना, लंबा नाक होगा, मोटा ललाट होगा, फेयर कलर होगा, ठीक है। और एक और है, उसको बोलते हैं नॉर्डिक, NORDIC, नॉर्डिक, ठीक है। अब लैंग्वेज कैसे क्लासिफिकेशन करते हैं बेटा लिंग्विस्टिक? पहला, इंडो यूरोपियन, जैसे हिंदी, उर्दू, ये सब इंडो यूरोपियन हो गया। तो पहला लैंग्वेज लिख लो, इंडो यूरोपियन, ठीक है। दूसरा हो गया जैसे तेलुगु, तमिल, कन्नड़, मलयालम, इसको बोलते हैं द्रविडियन, ठीक है। ट्राइबल्स वाला लैंग्वेज को इधर सेंट्रल की तरफ जाएंगे, उसको बोलते हैं ऑस्ट्रो एशियाटिक, AUSTRO, एस्ट्रो एशियाटिक, ठीक है। रुक जाओ, कहीं कहीं बदमाशी कोई किया होगा तो क्या लिखा होगा? मुंडारी, इसी को बोलते हैं, ठीक है ना। एक जर्मन स्कॉलर है, उसने ऑस्ट्रो एशियाटिक वर्ड यूज नहीं करके मुंडारी वर्ड यूज किया। जैसे संथाल होंगे, अगर संथाल ट्राइब को जानते हो, नासिडी मल्ला, ऐसा करके उन लोग का लैंग्वेज है, तो ऑस्ट्रो एशियाटिक का मुंडारी है, इधर मुंडारी हो गया। फोर्थ, नॉर्थ ईस्ट की तरफ जा रहे हैं, उसको बोलते हैं तिब्बतो बर्मीज, फोर्थ लैंग्वेज है बेटा तिब्बतो बर्मीज, तिब्बतो हाइफन बर्मीज, ठीक है। इधर इसमें कुछ नहीं करना, इसको दो बाई से बांट देना, यहां लिखना इंडिक और यहां लिखना है नॉन इंडिक, Okay. Beta, where you have written Indic, there you can write in a bracket religions which emerged in India. Okay. Non-Indic, there in bracket you write religions which emerged outside India. Take, रुक जाओ. If the question is social base, clear है? Racial word has not to be used. Let me make it once again clear. If the question which has been asked to you in UPSC, social basis, so we will not be using the term race because race is a biological endowment. So instead of race, you will be using the word ethnicity, and the rest is there. So be precise looking at the question that what has been over there. Clear है? अब फिर एक लाइन को रिपीट कर. ठीक है बेटा यहां तक? अभी थोड़ा देर में ठीक हो जाएगा. खराब है. क्वेश्चन बहुत है, क्या करूं मैं? I repeat the lines. That if any one of us who has been a common man, who has been an ordinary citizen of the country, belonging to the different ethnicity, religion, and languages, and not been specialized, either being literate or not non-literate. Primarily, if you ask them what is one of the salient features of Indian society, he may not be knowing complex, archaic, continuity, and others. But at least he will be saying, sir, one of the features is diversity, unity in diversity. That characterizes the Indian society. And thus I said that when we are looking at the diversity, we also need to understand what are the bases of diversity. These are the certain broader bases of diversity through which the Indian society could be approached. But are any being that the moment you say Indian society, we basically perceived Indian society to be homogenized society. Hence it was necessary, imperative in part of us, not to refer the Indian society in a generic term, rather to talk about the society reflecting the diversity is prevalent. It is a common saying that 20 paces here and there, 20 steps here and there. The people differ, the culture differ, the dress pattern differ, the food habits differ. And this diversity has to be amalgamated in our writing. And if this diversity is there, then we are now looking at in terms of not the social perspective, but diversity is being approached by us from the political dimension as well. Thankfully, the inequality and different kind of anomalies through which the Indian society has sustained its history, they were addressed once we got independence. It was basically anticipated, it was basically thought that every anomaly of the society which the society is carrying on its shoulder could be addressed holistically with the democratic rule. Democracy would be able to address inequalities, the challenges, the privations, discriminations. So when the constitution emerged out, irrespective of caste, creed and sex, everyone started enjoying the similar rights. No discrimination on the basis of rights was there. But this, when you say no discrimination in part of the constitution, then our reference is basically political. What about society? Society which has practiced such kind of discriminations, which has practiced such kind of inequality, which has practiced such kind of differences, it reflected, it continued with the difference. If I could quote Dr. Ambedkar, that democracy is a top-down dressing in India. Democracy has come from top. And he made the sentence that today an anomaly has emerged. Democracy is being implemented in undemocratic social structure. Mind my line, beta. Undemocratic social structure, why? Because society is undemocratic. Society is not a democratic. Democracy has not percolated down. Niche nahi aaya. Democracy has not percolated down to the level of society. So this diversity seems to be prevalent. Obvious. It could be viewed by us. Every now and then we find about the certain kind of anomalies. Every now and then we find about the caste anatomy, caste antagonism. We find about the communal classes. Society seems to be polarized. And thus, once again, I am making a line that Indian Constitution, its inception, did not ask anyone, any Indian, to give up or relinquish one's previous identity. We were first something else, then we are an Indian. Mind the two lines, beta? However, being something else is not an hindrance to be an Indian. I always say this line. I don't know how you people will be taking this line of mine. I have always been saying this line. We cannot be an Indian without becoming something else. We are first something else, then we are an Indian. The moment you say first we are something else, it means we are carrying our previous identity. Either coming from caste or from religion, from the sex, male or female. We are carrying that one. But despite this diversity, there seems to be an unseen thread which binds all of us together in a oneness, in an integrative mechanism, which we call. And to reflect that unity and diversity, we have used a model that is called salad ball model. In contrast to the Western society that is called melting pot model. Clear hai mere baat yahan se? So give an mark downwards and write down this line. However, despite this diversity, there is an unseen thread which binds all of us together. Which binds all of us together, manifesting unity. Underline करेंगे, हाँ? But बोलना नहीं है, but unity here is without uniformity. Without uniformity and diversity without fragmentation. Right? Diversity enriches Indian society. उसी में कंटिन्यू करना बेटा. Diversity enriches, ENRICHes, enriches Indian society. And we celebrate it. And we celebrate it. Right? उसी में दो लाइन और लिखना. Even the Indian Constitution, even Indian Constitution does not ask to relinquish. Relinquish का मतलब बेटा give up. RELINQUISH। थोड़ा और बड़ा हो जाओगे ना तो तुमको पता चलेगा कि लाइन में गिव अप वर्ड नहीं फिट कर रहा है, तो इसके लिए रेलिंक्विश वर्ड यूज करेंगे, ठीक है। अंकित लाइन बोल बेटा। अक्षत, one's previous identity, ONES, one's previous identity one cannot be an Indian. कॉमा देके, one cannot be an Indian without becoming something else. And being something else, and being something else is not a hindrance to be an Indian. To be an Indian, for which we use capital salad ball model. Right? ब्रैकेट में लिखना बेटा, मैनिफेस्टिंग इंटीग्रेशन। सैलाड बॉल मॉडल, इन ब्रैकेट यू राइट मैनिफेस्टिंग इंटीग्रेशन। ठीक है, पढ़ो तो एक बार, पढ़ो इसको ठीक से, और मुझे 2 मिनट दो और टॉनिक ले लूं। ऐसा बोलूं, मन नहीं लग रहा है। एक और डायमेंशन खोलते हैं बेटा, उसके बाद कास्ट सिस्टम, जहां से you will start enjoying that one because you will be able to relate yourself with Indian society. But of late the questions have not been asked on the conventional kind of one. Of late the questions have been very unconventional in terms of continuity and change, modernity and tradition, unity and diversity. Indian society is typically called the traditional society. Tradition, which is a common inheritance to us, the belief, practices, which are common to us, plays. But when we started having contact with the West, more precisely during the colonial rule, the elements of modernity emerged. And these elements of modernity which emerged in terms of equality, democracy, secularism, sovereignty, and Indian society, which was a traditional society, started reflecting, started witnessing the newer kind of change, the dimensions of a change. But unlike that of the Western society, modernity did not prove to be antithetical to tradition, opposite to tradition. Rather, both moved along with. And why they moved along with? Because tradition was not pervasive enough to replace modernity, oppose modernity. And neither the modernity was the pervasive enough to completely replace the tradition. It means, similarly, the three possibilities will emerge out whenever there will be interaction between tradition and modernity. The first possibility will be tradition will oppose modernity. The traditionalism would be the highlight of that society. The second possibility would be that modernity will replace outside tradition. Loss of tradition would be there. Such societies where the tradition is lost. Identity crisis should be found. Tradition is also our identity, right? And the third possibility would be that both will coexist. Indian society is reflecting the third possibility. That's why I had made a sentence, neither of these two processes, tradition and modernity, have been power pervasive enough to replace one another. And since they were not power pervasive enough to replace one another, they coexisted along with one. And hence, any one of us who will be looking at the Indian society, despite Indian society reflecting the elements of modernity, it has also preserved certain dimensions of tradition. For which we had used the word, I ask you to recall back. Modernization of tradition and traditionalization of modernity. There seems to be an equilibrium between these. We are both the modern as well as traditional in our approach. Once a certain kind of unconventional dimensions to understand the Indian society is done, and when the Western scholars, who were basically somewhere obsessed with the class dimension in their own society, the class society, on the economic criterion, the moment they entered to the Indian society and started peeping into the social structure, they found that this society is unique. Unique in the sense that society seems to be closed. And that closeness has to be viewed in terms of the prevalence and persistence of the caste system. However, historically, the term that continued was basically called Varna model. Varna has a two connotation. The usual connotation which you understand in terms of a Varna, that Varna means color. And this very connotation of Varna, reflecting or manifesting color, was basically used to distinguish the white Aryans from the black Dasas, non-Aryans. However, with the passage of time, with academic development, yet another perspective of Varna interpretation emerged. And the term which was used is called Varen. V-A-R-E-N. Varen means to adopt. Getting me? Line ko sunna beta tin line. Those who adopted Brahm means knowledge, were the Brahmins. Those who adopted Chhatra is a weapon, are the Kshatriyas. And those who adopted Vish, agriculture, are the Vaishyas. But it has a limitation. It does not talk about the fourth Varna, that is called the Shudra. But you will be surprised to know that Indian society, either we are looking in terms of Varna model, we are looking it in terms of the caste model, Jati model, or class model, has always reflected one of the typical feature that is called fusion and fission. Fission in terms of the two Varnas, reflecting to the four Varnas, and sometimes the different castes, subcaste, they club together to form a new caste. Getting me? It means our understanding of the Varna model has to be the first one with which we will be looking at the traces of caste. And then we will be looking at Jati, J-A-T-I. Surprisingly, the Hindi translation of caste is Jati. So I'm not using the Hindi word. I'm using the word English, Jati, J-A-T-I. Because when you say Brahmin, your first question will come out, which Brahmin? There are so many categories among the Brahmins as well. Clear, right? Bolu? The different permutation and combination of a varna produce different castes, within which the two concepts, anuloma and pratiloma, hypergamy and hypogamy, seems to be important. Gamy means marriage, gamus means marriage. अब हिंदी वर्ड यूज किया हूं अनुलोम, आप कर सकते हैं देवनागरी, वर्नाकुलर वर्ड यूज करेंगे अनुलोम. Anu means with the lom is here, which goes with the rule. Prati is against, lom is a hair which goes against the rule. Clear? Anuloma is a union of a higher varna male with a lower varna female. Clear? Hai? It means a Brahmin can marry Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Kshatriya can marry Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Vaishya can marry Vaishya and Shudra. And a Shudra male can marry only the Shudra. Clear है? पहले थोड़ा ट्रेडिशनल कर लेते हैं, फिर न्यू चेंज को देखते हैं. Pratiloma is the union of higher varna female with a lower varna male, which was prohibited. Clear है? थोड़ा सा हिस्ट्री से डिफर करेंगे. हिस्ट्री में बोलेंगे, लिखा होगा अनुलोम इज एक्सेप्टेड मॉडल. राइट? सोशली अनुलोम इज ए क्रिटिसाइज्ड मॉडल. व्हाई आई एम सेइंग? Because one of the most important features of caste system is endogamy. Endogamy means marrying in. Every caste is required to marry within the same caste. What would conspire a caste to marry the people of the other caste? That's why I'm saying, in a social dimensions, we are looking at anuloma not as accepted, but criticized model. And pratiloma as a prohibited. Clear? Right? And then when you say Indian society, we'll always be saying, in a broadly we say Indian society is a patrilineal society. Except some traces, either we are talking about the Nayars of Kerala, you talk about the Garo, Khasi, Jaintia or Lakshadweep. They are a matrilineal societies. But broadly, when we try the Indian society, we say Indian society is basically patrilineal society, where the son inherits the name of his father. Isn't it? If a Brahmin father with a Sudra mother has a son, will the son get the name of his father, Brahmin? मेरी बात को ठीक से गौर करना बेटा. No. So what the Dharma Shastra ruled out? What the Dharma Shastra wrote? That if the woman is too down a ladder the hierarchy, I repeat, if the woman is too down ladder the hierarchy, the progeny born will not acquire the status of the father. Am I able to make myself clear here? I repeat the line. It means a different permutation and combination of a Varna model in terms of Anulom and Pratilom produce different castes. Okay? The progeny born out of Brahmin mother and Sudra male was called Chandala. Which has been referred, who have been referred by the different terms in a different historical periods. Ati Sudra, Nam Sudra, exterior caste, depressed class. Simon Commission was the one who first used the term scheduled caste, written in 1935 Government of India Act. And once we got independence, with a reference to Article 341, we scheduled, and thus the term scheduled caste. Clear hai? Along with Article 17, that was abolition of untouchability. Clear hai? I quote Dr. Ambedkar that who are scheduled caste? Dr. Ambedkar writes that scheduled castes are ex-untouchables. When he says ex-untouchables, it means he is basically referring the reference of Article 17. But I'm sorry, untouchability has survived the constitutional ban in India. Rather, it has taken a new avatar in India. Untouchability is a social reality even today, despite so many laws, legislations, and a constitutional manifestation. Clear, right? They do not prefer the term scheduled caste. Rather, they prefer the term Dalit. Right? Dalit, search of a new positive idea. Clear है? याद रखना इस लाइन को. Dalit is not a caste. Dalit is a category. Right? And the moment you say Dalit is a category, not a caste, then the identity, assertiveness is established in relation to others and also based on the cultural experiences. Okay? If you look at the old history, ancient India, it says, somehow some historians will say, make the line, that on the ruins of Varna emerged caste. Ruins समझते हो ना, RUINS? By the time 1960s emerged, 1960s is somewhere broader, different kind of mobilization. And the new Varna consciousness emerged out in terms of revival of a Varna, and the two terms started being used. Suvarna, Avarna. Su is a Hindi word for acha, good. Those who are of a good Varna. Clear hai? And Avarna, who has not been represented in the Varna model. Clear hai beta? ठीक है? अभी तो लोचा हो गया, chemical लोचा. Those who have not been represented in a Varna model, right? Are they Sudra? They are untouchable. Clear है? ब्राह्मण क्षत्रिय वैश्य, अभी पहले हाथ से समझ लो. ब्राह्मण क्षत्रिय वैश्य are called Dvij. Dvij means twice born. Those who have got the right of Upnayan to wear the sacred thread. Shudra is called Ekaja. Does not have a right to Upnayan. Alright? And untouchable is called Panchama. Fifth category. Clear hai? Historical pages, Panchama was outcasted. And a certain period was, certain time was basically fixed. That they would enter to the village, they will do their work. Even their shadow can pollute us. In a history pages you'll find about, right from Harsa and others, the moment you start going through, you'll find about a certain kind of antidote over there. But the moment we are looking at the modern society, we cannot ignore this category. They are very much vibrant in the social structure, enjoying the similar kind of democratic rights what every other caste and categories are enjoying. And if all are enjoying the similar kind of categories, similar kind of rights, then now they have started asserting themselves. And how they are asserting themselves? They are asserting themselves with their new consciousness, with a new identity. They are basically establishing a new positive identity. And mind my line here. The Dalit scholars have started coming out with a certain kind of anecdotes, very opposite to the Brahminical construction. Alright? Two theories run parallelly. If you look at the Brahminical perspective, how the Sudras came out, it has one perspective. If you look at the Dalit perspective, they have the different kind of anecdotes. All right? And today, Dalits are not ashamed of their identity. All right? Together, combinedly. They are fighting against any kind of discrimination, and they are fighting against every kind of atrocities. I don't deny that atrocities are not happening. Atrocities are there. But the atrocities and being a mute spectator of the atrocities, they are the foregone era. Retaliation is coming out. The new consciousness is coming out. The new leadership is coming out. And almost every political party claiming to represent the Dalits are not free from or are indebted to, if I could use this word, to the ideological triangulation of Mahatma Phule, Dr. Ambedkar, and Periyar Ramaswamy Nayak. है बेटा मेरे पास महात्मा फुले, सत्य शोधक समाज, हिस्ट्री में पढ़े होंगे, cunning Brahmin and gullible Sudras. Dr. Ambedkar approached caste from below. He provided broken man theory of history. Broken man theory of history, ये आसान है बेटा. Whenever there is a war, one who has won the war, conqueror, will write the history. And to whom he has conquered will be suppressed, subjugated. So he provided a broken man history for the Dalits. Clear? And quite opposite to Gandhi ji. (1932) कम्युनल अवार्ड, मॉडर्न इंडिया पढ़े होंगे, गांधी अंबेडकर रिफ्ट पढ़ेंगे, नहीं पढ़े कोई बात नहीं है, मैं नहीं बोलने वाला, मैंने हिंट दे दिया. अब लाइन को सुनना बेटा. गांधी जी जो स्टेटस कोइस्ट, स्टेटस को समझते हो, जैसा है वैसा चलता रहे. डिवोट हिंदू, इधर क्लास में ही सुनना है, दिल पे नहीं लेना है कुछ. He supported the Varna ashram system. Right. And I quote one line of Gandhi, that if a Brahmin dines with the Sudras, he is not dissolved of a priestly duty. But to do so, he cannot be forced. Second line को समझना बेटा. If the Brahmin dines with, Brahmin खा रहा शूद्र के साथ, तो priestly duty से dissolve नहीं हुआ. लेकिन ऐसा करने के लिए उसको फोर्स नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है ना? And he referred the term Harijan. So Gandhi used the term Harijan in a more parochial manner. Parochial समझते हो ना? Limited, संकुचित. Narhari Purushottam, a Gujarati poet, was the first one who was used the term Harijan for the entire humanity. Gandhiji used the term Harijan for the particular category. Clear hai? There's a very strong statement by Dr. Ambedkar. He said that the term Harijan is a soothing palliative, unquote. Palliative क्या होता है बेटा? Palliative is a medicine which reduces the pain without elevating the disease. सुनने में अच्छा लगा, हरिजन है, प्रॉब्लम वहीं का वहीं है. So Dr. Ambedkar says the term Harijan is a soothing palliative. which distorts the caste system. Distorted form है caste system ना. अब लाइन को ठीक से सुनना. Some close the doors. Some found the doors being. Who closed the doors? The Brahmins closed the doors. Who found the doors being closed? The untouchables found the doors being closed. Clear? Second paper में ले जा रहा हूं. Means we need a state as an instrument for the social, political and economic upliftment of the Dalits. Clear? And what that upliftment would be there? That upliftment would be positive discrimination policy of reservation. Clear है? डीप जाऊं? काम कर रहा है? जॉन रॉल्स नाम सुना? भाइयों थोड़ा क्वेश्चन भी यूपीएससी का देख लो. 2018 they have asked the question in a fourth paper. How far the John Rawls theory could be applied in the understanding of Indian society? मेहनत करना होगा तुम लोग. कोई नहीं, पहले ट्राई करता हूं. हीरो थोड़ा सा नाराज हो, दुखी हो, मैं हूं इधर अभी. छोड़ूंगा तो नहीं, तुमको खुश करने के लिए नहीं आया. एक लाइन है बेटा जॉन रॉल्स का. लाइन को ठीक से सुनना है. Justice is not an ethics of reward. Justice is an ethics of redressal. Can I ask a question in a fourth paper? That justice is not an ethics of reward, rather it is an ethics of redressal. How the policy of reservation could be ethically justified from the perspective of John Rawls? ये तो आंसर था, ये तो लिख. Reservation is not a reward. Reservation is basically redressal of the historical wrongs which you have done for centuries. Clear है मेरी बात यहां से? So any one of us will be talking about the social justice. We'll be talking about the compensatory justice. A state will emerge to take care of the functions of justice. In a modern times, state and justice seems to be intertwined. Intertwined मतलब जुट गया दोनों, है ना? Justice is not the responsibility of one individual. Today, in a democratic society, justice is the responsibility of state. Clear है मेरी बात यहां से? और नायकर, मुझे एक लाइन उनका बहुत अच्छा लगता है, जहां से द्रविडियन मूवमेंट शुरू होगा. The things that cannot be ended must be ended. Caste system cannot be mended. इसका कुछ नहीं हो सकता. caste system, it must be ended. क्लियर है? अब आप किसी को भी ले लीजिए, कोई भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ले लीजिए, फुले, अंबेडकर एंड, तो आपको जो क्वेश्चन है दलित आइडेंटिटी, assertiveness, उसमें केवल एक लाइन लिख देना है कि मोस्ट ऑफ द दलित assertiveness seems to be influenced by the ideological triangulation of Jyotiba Phule, Ambedkar and Naikar. Alright, you have done justice with your question. क्लियर है? यहीं से दलित को भी उठाना है, गांधी जी और अंबेडकर को भी उठाना है. अंबेडकर साहब की एक बुक है, क्वेश्चन है बेटा, एनिहिलेशन ऑफ कास्ट, है ना? क्या सचमुच कास्ट एनिहिलेट हो गया? राइट. अब दो लाइन, ठीक है यहां तक? ओए जॉम्बीज, मुंडी लाओ. I am not a slave of yours. कुछ में तो डांटूंगा भी, है ना? ब्रांड का फ्रस्ट्रेशन भी तो निकालना है. पहले मॉडर्निटी और ट्रेडिशन लिख लेते, फिर मैं बोलना शुरू कर. ठीक है ना? है? ठीक है ना? अब ठीक, अब थोड़ा सा 3 पॉइंट हो गया, 4 पॉइंट हो गया, अलग से पॉइंट. मॉडर्निटी ट्रेडिशन वाले क्वेश्चन को पता नहीं आपको अभी तक क्वेश्चन आया नहीं आया, आ जाएगा कल तक. ठीक है, थोड़ा सा क्वेश्चंस को भी देखेंगे बेटा. व्हेन आई एम हियर एंजॉय दैट एंड यूज दैट वन. पैराग्राफ चेंज करेंगे बेटा, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखेंगे. येट अनदर फीचर ऑफ इंडियन सोसाइटी, YT, yet another feature of Indian society is the peaceful coexistence between tradition and modernity. Capital. Between tradition and modernity. T capital, M capital. Tradition can उसी भी लाइन में. Tradition can broadly be used to refer to any human practice rituals. थोड़ा बड़ा बड़ा लिख बेटा. Rituals, beliefs, that are handed down from generation to generation mind the word manifesting. अंडरलाइन कर लेना पड़ेगा इसके बाद. मैनिफेस्टिंग कॉमन इनहेरिटेंस ऑफ कलेक्टिविटी. Common inheritance of collectivity, whereas by having contact with the West, WST, by having contact with the West, precisely during the colonial rule, PRECISEOLY, precisely during the colonial rule, the elements of modernity ठीक है. कैपिटल लाइक इंडिविजुअलिज्म, ब्रैकेट में लिखो बेटा, इंडिविजुअलिज्म वर्सेस कलेक्टिविज्म. ब्रैकेट क्लोज करो. ठीक है. अचीवमेंट ए कैपिटल, ब्रैकेट में लिखो बेटा, अचीवमेंट वर्सेस एस्क्रिप्शन. ASCRIP, एस्क्रिप्शन. एस्क्रिप्शन का मतलब बेटा बाय बर्थ. ठीक है. सेकुलरिज्म, बगल में लिखो बेटा, Secularism versus religiousness. Can a religious person be secular? ठीक है, क्या नाम है? अच्छा, you had asked me the question. यही क्वेश्चन है. Today, what you say? What are the challenges of cultural practices in the name of secularism? There is a misguided conception in us. कैसा misconception है बेटा? Anyone who is religious, we call him communal. All right? Atheist, यही समझते हो ना? अनु, atheist requires to be secular, not an atheist. Take your time, सोचो. The person who does not believe in religion, उसको secular क्या करना है भाई? Since I believe in a religion, I require to be secular. In my private life, I could be religious. In my public life, I require to be secular. Right? So being religious is not fundamentalist. Being religious is not anti-secular. होगा ना? तो ये डायलेमा है सेकुलर वर्सेस रिलीजियसनेस का. क्लियर है? नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, यूनिवर्सलिज्म. ब्रैकेट में लिखना बेटा, यूनिवर्सलिज्म वर्सेस पर्टिकुलरिज्म. ठीक है. इक्वालिटी, ब्रैकेट में लिखना बेटा, इक्वालिटी वर्सेस इनइक्वालिटी. ब्रैकेट क्लोज करो. एटसेट्रा फाउंड देयर इमर्जेंस. But neither of these two processes that is tradition and modernity where the power pervasive enough to replace one another. To replace one another. Thus, both coexisted together. And if at one hand modernization of tradition took place, then on other hand traditionalization of modernity also took place. पढ़ लेते बेटे, वो पढ़ ले, क्लास सिस्टम पे आऊंगा, पढ़ ले इसको, पढ़ ले. एनी प्रॉब्लम देन लेट मी नो प्लीज. ठीक है बेटा, आई टेक 2 मिनट, यू जस्ट गो थ्रू दिस वन एंड यही पूछ लेना जो प्रॉब्लम है, मुझे पूछ लेना है. ठीक है, थोड़ा सा डायग्राम बनाऊंगा मैं. आई विल कम.